6:20 and you're good to go.
So, 6:20 hours. Tuesday, October 12th, I'll finance and human resource committee to order. Can you actually run through this? Call to order. Councilmember Mark Davies here. Councilmember Scott Harrington here. Councilmember John Rath here. We've had submission of last meeting's minutes, but there's any need for corrections. Hearing none, the subminutes as provided. Moving on to topic A. Provide and Thrive Marketing Design Services. Video craft contract amendment. Even on electronic email, I don't think we have that. Is that something that you sent us? or-
No, it's not. It's we have a current contract with IdeaCraft on the Survive and Thrive marketing. We did that when we set up the Survive and Thrive program in 2020. As an extension of that contract, approved in the through the administrative fees in the DOS and the DRI grants. The plan was to extend the marketing project with $50,000 of an investment from those grant funds. And what we would like to do is have council approve that IdeaCraft contract be amended. So because they were so familiar with what we're doing in developing the website and whatnot with Survive and Thrive, to have them continue on with the marketing portion of it. And that will be funded through the grant funds. So what we're going to ask council to do is to waive the purchasing policy to amend their contract so they can move forward on the marketing part.
What is the amount that you're asking for?
50,000.
She said 50,000.
That was already approved. That's already been approved, just so you know. That's already been approved in that grant for the DRI.
Back in 2020.
Yeah, back in,
We haven't
well,
expended anything.
not on this section of the marketing itself. Back when we developed the 2.3 million of the DRI grant that we've been doing for the Market Street area, part of that is a marketing plan of 50,000. And what we would like to do is take that part of that grant activity and award it to IdeaCraft because they've been so involved in the Survive and Thrive program.
So you're going to utilize 50,000 to market Survive and Thrive.
To market Oneonta itself, not just Survive and Thrive.
So the original money was from the DRI committee money of 2 point whatever for 50,000 for marketing of downtown Oneonta. But on this agenda, you're saying you want to use it for Survive and Thrive marketing.
Well, it's
already approved.
Yeah, it was already approved through the Survive and Thrive program. When the Survive and Thrive program got approved,
So you want to change it back to marketing downtown Oneonta.
yes, it's the Oneonta community part of the project for the Market Street in the downtown. And it's part of the DOS and the DRI grant. And it was a plan that's been already approved. We now just need to award the contract. So what we're asking is that the council will waive the purchasing policies for awarding this contract and award it to IdeaCraft by amending the contract that we already have with them on what they did for the Survive and Thrive program. So their original contract was under Survive and Thrive, and we would just like to amend that to extend it for
To $50,000
the
to
$50,000.
market downtown.
The original contract with IdeaCraft was only to create the content, not.
Yes.
Here's a confusion. The council had approved, I don't know how much money, but it was about $80,000, I think. Some of it was DRI money, some of it was economic development money. And for IdeaCraft to create content to market city of Oneonta. And the council at the same time approved the money for it to be spent on actually publishing the content. It was a little slow getting off the ground. We were working on this, became delayed for a number of reasons. So the content, while it was created by IDFS, has never been published. So we never even created a contract with anybody to publish it. So now we're at the next step. Finally, we should have been there 8 months ago, 9 months ago. But now we're at the next step to publish it. The money's already been approved to use for this purpose, but now we have to contract with somebody to publish it. So what Jimmy is asking for is to contract with IdeaCraft without going through a bidding process, because they're the ones who created the content. And
The next step, so you understand, I'm sorry if I'm not explaining it well enough. The next step is for the media buys, and what they'll be doing is they'll be taking what they have developed and putting it on all different social media sites and different marketing sites that they will be using to be able to market the Oneonta area.
media buying is a word issue.
Yeah,
So we
the media
spent-
buys.
I just want to see if I understand this. So we spent 80,000 with IdeaCraft to create content,
No.
but we haven't published it yet?
No.
We didn't. The 80,000 that was approved to use for this purpose included the $50,000 we haven't spent. So you only spent
30,000,
or less.
Yeah, I think it was less than that, maybe.
and they need 50 to do the publishing.
This is now
But
for
the
the
50
media
was
buys. This is,
Moved over for Survive and Thrive, and now we need to move it back over for marketing.
Well, it was never for Survive and Thrive. Part of the Survive and Thrive concept was the Thrive part was to market Oneonta when the pandemic was over. It won't be over. But so the original Survive and Thrive concept was to market the city of Oneonta when the pandemic was over and opened up. So now we're looking to market the city of Oneonta, which was doing exactly what we said we were going to do. It's just we now need a contract for somebody to do it. And the only issue here is the council willing to waive the bidding process so we can hire IdeaCraft, who's been involved with this. That's the issue that we really have to talk about, is the council willing to waive the bidding process.
And I'm just trying to get a full depth of this because there was no background information provided before tonight's meeting. But with that said, do we own what they produce? Is it proprietary?
that I
I'm
cannot answer.
sure that we
Yeah.
should own it, and we paid for it. I don't know what our contract says, but I would imagine we should own it.
Is there a way we can get the contract? See what it is?
So, right, so if we own the content, you think that you're getting a better deal because you're going with the creator rather than going out to bid? Is that ultimately what you're trying to do?
Yes, from what I understand from Judy and also the other committee members who worked with IdeaCraft on this, is that because they are so familiar with the Oneonta area already, they also were so involved in developing the website material and all of the different marketing aspects of what they went through under Survive and Thrive. They think it's the most logical step is to let them now do the media buys.
I think the benefit, and I support it, is that because they worked with the city of Oneonta for the past year in creating the content, they've become very familiar with the purpose of the content. They've become very familiar with our strengths that we're trying to market. They understand what we're trying to accomplish, so that they would be best in selecting the appropriate channels and who that would target the right audience that we're trying to reach. I think that's the point.
And what they're focusing on, from what Judy explained to me, is they're focusing on where alumni live, to try to encourage them to come back home. They're looking at, different people who have moved out of the area and the general areas of where they have relocated to try to refresh Oneonta to them. And they have all these different strategies planned as far as reaching out to invite people to come back home. And also to another concentration that they're doing is to try to get people who want to move out of the crowded areas into a more less crowded area because of COVID and, the high demand for people who want to move out of the city. So they have all of these great ideas already planned and targeted. Now we just need to give them the contract to do it.
I will say that I did get a peek at some of the content they created, and I think everybody will love it. It's terrific. It's top quality.
Any other questions?
Well, I would like to, at some point, see the contract. before-
I don't believe the contract is ready yet, but we would definitely, when the contract is fully written
It's gotta
and
go
we bring it to you, yeah. And
Let's-
that's,
So the mayor's allowed to sign it, it's gotta be approved. by the council.
yes, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is I like to see that at some point. I think it's hard to make a real good decision when all the information, I feel there's information lacking to be able to ask. And the big one is are we gonna own that content? Because that's the big part of that. If we own it, but then again, I think it's a good investment anyway to try to market the city, so.
Whether we own it or not is all a done deal. That was part of the original contract that created it. I can't imagine that we would own it.
But isn't that kind of what we're going into, the gateway signage, that type of, artisan creativity, are we allowed to? Is that for it?
All of that,
We own it?
we're onto something with the cities, it's not trademark or anything, but it's the city's.
We own it.
However,
We let anybody who wants use it. It's not best interest.
Absolutely.
That we own.
Mark, John?
Fine.
That's for council. On to, topic B, the town sewer contract. Overall, is there a movement above what they were paying before?
It's based on formula. So it's actually based on real cost. And there's different, if you looked at the end of the contract, you'll see 3 different examples. So we take actual costs, we take their portion of the debt service, whatever relates to the wastewater treatment plant. We take insurance policies. There's quite a detailed formula of the costs that we capture. Then we base that on usage of the different weights and measures that the wastewater treatment plant provides to us. So it's not like it's a set amount where it's going to increase a certain amount each year because everything is based on formula. For example, when we start making a debt payment on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade policies, a percentage of that will be charged to the town. And so it's all formula cost-based numbers. So if our costs go down, the town's costs will go down. If our costs go up, the town's portion will go up. It's all based on real activity.
The cost and the formula are representative of what it actually costs us in 21, 22, 23, right? We know what our labor costs are going to be in those 3 years. We also can generally know what our raw material on the sewer side, what it takes to break everything down, right? I think we got caught last year with a big spike in one of the chemicals. I don't remember what it was. And Gary and I, we joked about what the chemical was because we got biology background or
Oh,
something. We were trying
yes,
to figure out what
polymer
the chemical
was.
was, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that was a big spike. So obviously with that, given that,
Yeah, but like this isn't a 3-year contract. This will be a 30-year contract. So it's so
Judy said they're paying based on actual cost, so that's like whatever the cost was to us will be
It's captured.
calculated to split the proportions of these based on their proportion of flow and characteristics of wastewater.
and they understand this.
This is basically the same, almost the same contract we had previous 30 years with some changes to language. There was no change. They do have a section in there that reserves a certain amount of flow. For cities, wastewater treatment plant is permitted to treat with the 4 million gallons. The town is reserved 700,000 of that flow. And you pay a certain amount for that reserve flow. They don't actually spend the same, which they're not anywhere close to. It hasn't changed. It's the same for the way that works. The $700,000 free is available for the cities. Obviously, or if we're even have to, most of that. There were no changes necessary.
So we're allowed up to 4 days.
Couch, the other floors, that's it.
I know both wastewater and water were basically 50% capacity. Since that here many years ago, definitely looked into the future, said the possibilities, set high bar. That's good. Any other questions? Simple council.
Just this one note. Pending the town attorney's final review. For whatever reason, we have to go back and like something about myself.
Topic C, which is the date extension of a subrecipient agreement with Otsego County Development Corporation. So this is on the Survive and Thrive.
This was on the Survive and Thrive.
We have a balance of 8,000.
No, we've got a balance of about 31,000 yet left to be expended. And they don't believe that it will be fully issued by the end of 2021. And when the motion was passed by council, there was a clause in it that said that all funds needed to be expended by December 31st, 2021. And we would like to amend that, just that portion of the subrecipient agreement, and make it December 31st, 2022.
I think it's good because our numbers are a little bit different. We just met, I'm also on the board for OCDC, and we were under the impression that there was only $8,000 left.
That's 8,000 in their possession. We still have a balance of 31,000 to give them.
31,000.
Yes. So as those funds become available, we'll turn those funds over to them. That's also was one, Judy double checked with OCDC and made sure that they were good with the extension. They're also looking for additional funds if we have more funds, which we do. And
So overall, in totality, we have 31,000.
yes, once I don't want to quote that number, Len, because maybe right now I've only got like 25,000 to give them, but we have up to 31,000 yet to give them to the current budget.
Good.
We had originally budgeted a little over 128,000. We have issued them 97.
Any other questions or objections to extending the date by a year? Move that up to council. The topic D, local community development grant program.
Let me take it. Okay. As we had discussed at the last finance committee meeting, when we were talking about the yoga event coming into town, we said that we would develop a program to bring it to finance. And Judy and I have worked on it, and Greg have worked on it a little bit since the past 2 weeks. And we have come up with some guidelines for what we are calling the Cool Grant Fund, which is the City of Oneonta local grant fund. And we're trying to set up some guidelines, and basically in discussing it amongst ourselves, and the mayor was in on some of the conversations. We're setting up some guidelines to develop rounds. I would like to suggest that we start with 100,000 and that we issue it in rounds, so we can make it be so much per round in maybe the next 2 or 3 years, and have different guidelines of who can apply. We are tying it to the comprehensive plan. And for example, to be eligible for the project, it must be located in the city of Oneonta, have appropriate zoning, have business owners, nonprofits, individuals who are residents of the city of Oneonta. And the areas that we have chosen out of the comprehensive plan is arts, culture, and recreation. And under sub-bullets under that area, we have development of events, enhancements, improvements of existing assets, year-round outdoor activities, generate new and promoting existing assets and natural resources. The next area we chose was tourism and driving visitation, increasing their length of stay within the city, advertising, and public and private partnerships. The next area is economic development and community development. And under those areas, it's assisting businesses, developing green areas and energy, workshops, technology development, remote work development, beautifications, promotions of our local produce, facade programs, outdoor activities. These are just ideas that we're starting to put the policy together on. We would also like to have a mayoral appointed committee to review applications that come in, have a Rubik cube, a guideline of how many points get a, or how give the committee some type of guideline to for the approval process, and that way they can max out on the first round, say, okay, say the first round is $20,000. Here's your applicants, choose who you want to get it for this round. And then just have the program develop, see how successful it is, see what it generates. But we would like your feedback. If you would like us to incorporate anything else in the policy, if you would have any other ideas, any other areas. But we have a rough draft that we're working on, but we wanted to bring it to you to get your feedback.
Sounds good. Can you share that rough draft with us?
If you would like, that's fine with me. It's very rough, but we can do that. But I like the name. I think Cool Grant is pretty cool.
Okay. Well, sounds like it's moving forward.
And just to give you a little bit more feedback, we did hear back from Sonia. She was able to get Foothills to reduce their price from, it was like over $24,000 down to 15. And she has refused Lake George because she really wants the event to happen in Oneonta.
Topic E is the 2020 audited financial statements.
Yes, you will see from your emails that you received last week that the audited financial statements are completed. They are filed at the clearinghouse. And just so you know, we received the highest opinion again this year of the unmodified opinion. And the auditors would like to come to the October 19th council meeting to give a short presentation to council. Congratulations to all of us. That's a team effort.
There's some budget transfers and amendments.
The really only one that I want to bring to your attention for right now is we are going to be doing water testing on the, and Greg can give you this in more detail. It's considered the large meters. Is that correct, Greg? Large meters?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what we do is we bill the owner of the meter 150% of what it cost us. So we have a 50% markup for our guys doing it. And we need a budget amendment to increase the expenditure and then to increase the anticipated revenue from the billings that we're going to do. Anticipating that it's going to be just under $50,000 that we'll be bringing to the council for an amendment.
Any questions?
No.
We're on to the information technology and computer system.
Is Carrie here?
Behind you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, at the end of August, purchasing sent out an RFP for 5 years of service on our IT and computer systems management services. Deadline was October 1st. We received 4 proposals. Unfortunately, one was essentially incomplete. We did review the other 3. It was an internal committee made up of 4 city staff members. All 4 of us unanimously recommend the vendor due to their experience, both outside of the city and working with the city, a clear diversification of their training and practical pricing. So we'd like to recommend Pyramid continues providing service to the city.
So are we looking at just extending the contract?
It would be a newly signed contract for a 5-year term. The one that we're currently on is an extension of the previous contract.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
I would just like to
Take your
add,
life in your own hands. Ask a question.
I have no questions.
I would just like to add that their annual support fee did not change for the 5-year period, and it's been the same fee for the past several years.
Right, so we're gonna go with pyramid. And they're gonna take care of some of that spam that we're all receiving. I mean, Mark has been a millionaire. How many times over, Mark?
We're all related. We all got the same uncle.
And if we're getting, I can't imagine what the mayor's getting for spam.
Well, just to let you know.
My uncle was not contacted.
You mean we shouldn't,
We shouldn't have said his name.
no, is there something wrong with responding to that and agreeing?
Well, just to let you know, on the spam that we are receiving, even though it may seem to you like you're getting hundreds, the software that we have installed right now is
Blocking
stopping
thousands.
thousands of them. So just so you know, it's a very low percentage that's getting through.
I think that's the first
First,
time
I want to say this on air also, that I'm also getting blackmailed, so.
You're getting blackmailed?
I got blackmailed.
I got that one also.
Did you?
I shouldn't have
Yeah, I
paid them.
immediately called the police. So there you go. Yes, John.
Oh, shoot, let me know these things.
Onward to topic H, the Lower Reservoir pedestrian bridge to the side of the. Interesting. Looking at the bid numbers.
The numbers came in actually under budget, within budget. Our budget was $110,000 for the projects. Total estimated cost of the project was $106,865. It's based on a low bid for installation from Eastman Associates for $14,900. There were two other bids, Tweedy at $21,303, Time Concrete Bridge at Royale at $39,300. Separate thing for the purchase of the bridge, just to save some money, I contacted markup, purchasing ourselves and the contractor install it. Purchase low bid is Contact, $78,165, Bridge Brothers, $79,037. So we reviewed bids, are recommending award to each of the low bidders for those two contracts. There's a couple other smaller items, installation of adaptive handrail that don't require formal bids that's a little less.
Where's Contact?
Sure.
Hold on, I
So
think-
they're
I have-
manufacturing the bridge and Eastman is installing.
hold on, I know where they are. Hold on one sec. They're in Scarborough, Maine.
I may have missed something, but where exactly is this bridge?
So this probably never would have seen it, maybe you would have seen this bridge in your lifetime. There used to be a bridge that went from the Lower Reservoir Dam out to the Valve House that's about 50, 70 feet or so out into the lake. So this will replace that bridge. That bridge hasn't been there since I can remember. It fell in years ago, was taken down by DPW. And the reason it wasn't put back up at that time, the valves in that valve house in the intake were really not operational. Now that we've done our project and it was completed 2 years ago for the Lower Reservoir Dam improvements, we also replaced the valve in there so we can change the level of the intakes, which is beneficial to depending on the water quality. It's kind of something that the operator can handle.
Right.
So having a bridge out there will allow us to adjust the valve water intake levels depending
I
on.
assume that this is closed to the public, it's not a public pedestrian. Right. It's just a utility.
Correct. But you guys gone up there and taken a look at the work. It's excellent work. It looks beautiful. The Lower Reservoir plus.
Maybe in the motion, we should say it's a utility bridge, because people will read it and think that there's a pedestrian bridge or something.
Partners were forward for us, for the project, so it's really just something to say.
I agree with Gary. I probably should retitle it from pedestrian to utility bridge.
Access, we'll call it Lower Reservoir Utility Access Bridge. Call that option. Plus that.
Move that up to full council. Congratulations, Eastman. Bidding on it, being really good. Nice to see a local contractor. I think Tweedy is actually the county also. Dover. And the wastewater. Or is this just water?
Water, so this is similar program to the program that funded the current wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. This is a water infrastructure improvement acts grant that we'd be seeking, which would be a 60% grant up to a $5 million total project. So what we're looking to go in for is somewhere around a $5 million total project. We're working on finalizing the estimates, which would be seeking a $3 million grant. And we would seek either, depending on the interest rate, we could get an EFC loan. EFC is Environmental Facilities Corporation, which is the entity that oversees this grant program. They issue low or no interest loans. I don't think we would qualify for a 0% loan in this case because I don't think it would work out. Depending on the percentage, we would either take that loan or seek to bond it ourselves. In the wastewater's case, I believe we bonded for the balance, the non-grant portion. Is that right, Jenny?
Well, that will be through EFC. Yeah, we're going to have a 0 interest rate through EFC.
0%.
It is a 0 interest rate. Yeah.
Okay, so certainly if we get 0%.
We haven't finalized the terms of it yet, but I'm assuming it will be at least 30.
Because it's based on the utility of the project, correct?
So as far as the scope of work, generally this is at the water treatment plant. There's some concrete sedimentation basin, population basin that has issues, concrete needs to be replaced. There's some walk bridges that need to be done. Other equipment, the filter gallery, to be up and also the piping valves as part of this. Some water plant, pump house, upgrades, security improvements, chemical storage tank. They address a lot of good issues that we've been waiting for this opportunity to address. So this was identified in, I think it was 2016 water system master plan. It's been on our radar and capital plan, just kind of hanging out there a couple of years, waiting for when this sort of program will be announced again. So thank you for this.
So we're looking at 3 million, so?
That's what we'd be applying for, $3 million grant.
And that's gonna take care of all that infrastructure you just listed out.
Well, we're thinking it's around a $5 million total project, so there'd be a $2 million.
Yeah, I understand. So before,
Yes, it might be more than 5. We'll obviously come back with an authorizing resolution for the council to apply. Seeker for this as well. This will be a little bit simpler process than what we talked about last.
The bond or loan would be paid for through the water bills, correct?
So you'll see the seeker resolution, there will be an authorization to apply for the grant. There will also be a bond authorization. That's the council, not the next week, but future meetings will have to.
and so we're looking to bid this work out in 22.
Assuming we are notified of the award in probably spring, if we're awarded, I imagine we can get design started. Design will take probably a year, 18 months, and by the time we bid, I think we're looking 2023 to award. Legal.
Any objection? And then the last is topic J, the event program, marketing and promotion services.
Okay, so I just wanted to give you a heads up, another thing we're working on, I'm ready to share physically tonight, but we would like to come back and share with you a draft RFP. The scope of work for that RFP for going out for what the title is community event program, marketing and promotion services. This is the thing that the service that DO has been providing for the last 6 or so years, since 2015. Periodically, we have to go through a procurement process in this case, and RFP is the way to go. I think it's also an opportunity for the city to consider what do we want DO to provide. Let's define the scope, maybe a little bit better than it's defined now. Obviously, I think everyone understands that things in general they provide. I think the primary purpose of DO or of the city funding DO is to get events, have events happen. Whether they're putting on the events or they support some other events as well that other organizations put on. There's also a marketing and promotion advertising aspect of getting the word out about these events and other things going on downtown. So without getting in all sorts of specifics today, I think we're gonna draft an RFP and bring it back to you to review. I just wanted to let you know that we're working on it and we want to think about what sort of deliverables, measurable outcomes would you like to see as a result of the city providing money to, whether it's DO or I don't know who else might apply. Obviously, there's an RFP process to go through, but
Well, what's our timeline on that, Greg?
we don't have a specific timeline at this point. I think it's going to be.
Under the contract run out at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have specific dates, but we would like to get something in place before the end of the year. So probably the next finance meeting will be back with a draft and then go forward from there, and have the feedback. And then the full council wants to have a discussion on it.
Is there something from your perspective that you'd rather see DOs doing?
I don't think major changes are in order necessarily. I just think it's helpful to clearly define what the expectations are. I know there's a little confusion recently with the Halloween parade and those sort of things. I think if we can spell out a little better, what sort of communication we want regarding new events or changes. And then if there are any specific events that the council really wants to make sure are done every year, that they're very successful, we want to specifically put an RFP this event or something very close to it. We want it to be in your proposal. Whatever that may be, whether it's downtown closures on Saturdays in the summer, or it's the Balloon Fest, or whatever, we can craft the scope of work the RFP out where we like. We get more open-ended or be more specific.
I think it's a good move. I think it's a smart move to make. The deliverables are not clear in our current contract. And it sort of leaves the door open, not that DO has a service law, but it leaves the door open for them to decide how to spend the $60,000-$70,000 that we're giving them, as opposed to us telling them in exchange for the $70,000, these are the things we want to see happen.
And then just for clarity, because we're recorded, what was the final outcome for the Halloween parade? Were we on Saturday or Sunday?
Well, the council was unanimous in saying that they preferred to have it in the traditional Halloween night, as opposed to the noon on the 30th was when the DO was planning to go. I did get them to agree to give me a few days to survey the council and then ask them to reschedule if that's what the council preferred. I let David Kraft, who's on the board, know this on Friday. No, I don't let him know. No, on Friday, I let him know that the council was unanimous and wanted to keep it traditional. And he said, I'll talk to the board and get back to you Monday. Today's Tuesday. I haven't heard.
I spoke to Katrina this afternoon.
Okay.
I just asked her an update, and she said that they prefer the Lions Club. The parade is technically a Lions Club event, and this year, I guess it switches year to year, and the DO coordinates with them as DO, who's technically putting on a trick or treat event. So the trick or treat event is still going to happen 12 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Saturday. That's a go. And then whether the parade is Sunday or Saturday, this is still not a decision rests with the Lions Club. So when I talked to her this afternoon, she left.
Okay. One of the things that they need to clarify though is that the permit for the parade is applied for by DO in their name. The certificate of insurance is in DO's name. So if when DO says we don't want a parade, that's not true, because it's the Lions Club. The Lions Club should be the certificate of insurance. The Lions Club should be applied to the permit. So it is DO's event. It's just that they asked the Lions Club and Rotary to alternate on doing the work, on coordinating with the volunteer groups and being out there to make sure it runs good.
So the permit, is it for Saturday or for Sunday?
the permit was approved for Sunday, from into Saturday.
For Saturday.
the 30th. So, they have not contacted us about changing the permit. We haven't heard from them. So, I'm a little disappointed because they said, DO said you'll hear back from us by Monday, and Tuesday's over. They have not contacted us, and they're really the ones who have to contact us, not the Lions Club, because we never have any communication with the Rotary or Lions Club. Everything's through DO, it's their permit, it's their insurance, so.
Hopefully you can get
I'll
some clarity.
follow through with the, board. It seems to be very,
Greg, do you have any more items that you wanted to add to the agenda? Jane?
No.
I think our committee just wanted to talk about our previous meeting about revenue streams, and I just would like to talk about tonight. We talked about city-owned property that we started working on. Create a list of criteria requirements. And, you guys want to just do a off the cuff open session? How you thinking about doing that? Again, here we are, just 2 minutes after 7. I believe we started at 20 after. So it shows the efficiency of having a city administrator working with city staff on an everyday basis. So instead of the mayor saying that we go till 9 o'clock at night, we're actually not very early, so.
we're not done yet.
Doubt that this is very fun. So, just kind of opening it up, what would we think of for creating a list of requirements or criteria for owning property? I would say if it has infrastructure, would be the most critical one if it has infrastructure. Public use, such as parks. Right.
Sorry, I just.
Greg and Jane, feel free to jump in. Open session.
If it's maybe if it's an access that we're gonna have to get to some of our infrastructure. Portable.
So right away. Right away for utilities, is that common within city property? Right, right away for utilities?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to, from the Mass Engineering Department, but not together that has all current city-owned properties, in the city, and it's where,
That'd be great.
and I think the next step, really, before there's too much more discussion, we can come back and just analyze it. Is there a utility? What issues are there, or reasons why the city owns? Maybe some things will fall out there. Discuss that. So.
Is the housing commission also talking about this? I believe they were. Wanting to know where the city had properties that were undeveloped. And so just to have some efficiency or communication. If they're also looking at having requests about.
Yeah, I guess my general understanding here, jump in, but the housing commission might suggest strategies to the city to pursue. Housing. You've already identified this as one.
It came up briefly, Scott maybe, at the, I'm not sure.
It came up, they wanted to look at city-owned properties, in which I said we had roughly 90, around the 90 mark. I couldn't remember these actual off my head. And they, because they were talking about small houses, or tiny houses, small
So
houses.
my question is, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to
For properties that are.
divest ourselves of property that, or what?
So the example that I brought up, Gary, was there's a 2.77 acre parcel that's located behind the Chestnut Street School, city owned, and it's sat there. We now have a local developer that's interested in purchasing the Chestnut Street School property to put in middle income housing. I approached him and said, would you be interested in this 2.77 also? And he said, yes. So there would be 2 parcels that you could immediately bring back onto the tax roll. So that's the ultimate.
Board stop us from doing that now?
Well, that's an individual basis, kind of siloed thinking. So that got me quarrying, and Mark is so quick at it, he was able to quarry it much faster than I, but there's 90+ properties that the city owns. They're all not parks, they're all not right-of-way properties, but, you know, it's something that I don't know if it's ever been looked at before, historically from city staff point of view or from elected official point of view, but this committee thought it was a good idea to kind of create a list of requirements or criteria. Why would we want to keep it? So kind of to your point, Greg, we could look at the parcels individually, but I think Mark was identifying if we created a list of criteria, then that would kind of streamline that process instead of looking at all 90 pieces.
I mean, the criteria is always going to be not, cut and dry. For example, we sold part of the Beach Street parking lot to Carney, to city property. Certainly that's public use. So I mean, I'm all for selling properties that is not doing the public any good and is costing us money and preventing development or tax increase, but I think we'll always have to look individually because it's never cut and dry. And do we want to sell parking lots? I guess it all depends upon the parking lot.
Sure. I think one other thing that I suggested, you asked me to go back and do is just kind of come up with a process that we should be following in this endeavor. I'm not sure what sort of regulations that I haven't dealt with before myself, but what regulations there are as far as soliciting interest from potential buyers and that sort of thing. I just want to make sure that we're following the right process. I can talk to the city attorney about that.
That's further down the road. I think we need to kind of look at the properties, whether we're looking at the properties individually or we're creating a list of requirements to get us to looking at the list. The easy ones to take off the top would be parks, right? We already have designated parks.
You can't sell it.
Correct. So that would take it immediately off the list. If we have infrastructure, like we have a 30-inch wastewater line that runs parallel with I-88, all of those parcels would automatically come off the list, and that's why I suggested infrastructure. And of course, if we have a right of way for other utilities, we've entered into an agreement for a right of way, so there's no way that we could do that. So that's the only reason I was suggesting this. There might be other ones, and that's why I was opening up to the committee that if you had thought of any other reasoning.
I can tell you the only two properties that we have sold since I've been there are the Beach Street property, Beach Street Walks property, and the triangle in front of Parkwood College, where the painted wall.
The wall.
Well, actually, we didn't sell. We claim we don't own the wall.
So who actually owns it?
That's a good question. Parkwood claims they don't own the wall. We claim we don't own the wall. The tax map, I'm told, is not that clear, even though David says he's confident we don't own it.
And NYSEG, because the utility house is right there.
NYSEG is part of the issue there, so nobody wants to take ownership of the wall. And
Well, I mean, just my quick observation of that's in the right of way, right? So it's a city-owned street, that wall is right.
David
Right there in the
will
right of way.
argue up and down that we do not own that wall.
There's a separate small parcel.
That's interesting, we got a wall. Because even on Kearney Street, right, so when I have all my land that's surveyed, and the pin is so far back, I remember having this conversation years ago with city staff, but why is that? Why are we paying plus the surveyor? Why is that pin back? Because technically the city has the right of way to come that far back. And that's why the pin there is, right? So
It's not.
really, the right of way is that small one.
But we'll sell the wall if somebody wants to buy
Hmm,
it. One of the things,
we need to sell a wall.
Margaret, complains that the public, everybody attributes that as the Hartford College wall. And they are held accountable for things that are put on it, if inappropriate things are written on there. And yet they don't own it or have any control.
Yeah, we've done a lot of cover-ups on that wall.
So, but anyway, that's
I think the paint.
We'll be here till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, the paint on it weighs more than the wall originally,
Right.
so. Go ahead, Jim.
I just wanted to add to the conversation that when the city did tax enforcement, before we had the agreement with the county, we took possession, I want to say, of roughly a dozen properties through tax sale. We tried to auction them. Nobody was interested. They're still on our ownership, so that's part of that list. And and quite often it's because it's an awkward lot, it's an awkward paper street, it's an awkward, little landlocked piece of, they're not big properties, but, so don't be surprised if there's not much interest in those, because we tried to auction them more than once and nobody would bite. Even the neighbors would not bite. They didn't want to have to pay taxes on something and then also have to maintain it and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know that, we've got a list of those of what we took possession of.
So I guess we can identify them because it sounds like they have a history behind them, at least within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna identify them. Is there anything else on our list that you guys wanted to talk about tonight? Mark? you
No, I
got
think
anything?
you just addressed it, so.
Oh, okay. I think we should look at these,
Yeah, no, I
Each
agree, and I was thinking maybe an easier process and appreciate Greg, you kind of doing the research and mapping it, is actually look at the pieces that we might be able to put back in the tax rolls, and maybe it's a sounds like it might be a fewer or number than the others, so maybe that's the better process of what is sitting out there that we might be able to. Granted that there might be some challenges even to selling them, but what might be out there that might be possible for people to sell? Because certainly there's a long list of infrastructure related and everything else that we just simply can't touch and don't want to touch.
Just to back up a little bit, the housing commission their thing was, that they call them little houses or tiny houses somewhere, and that some of the parcels might be good for that, so you can get some development. All that. That's why they were looking at it, and just wanted to reach out and say that, if this is something that we start doing, just to kind of keep them in the loop, so it's on their plate as well.
Sure, because I think, John and I, we've talked about this, and ancillary dwelling unit, an EDU, is popular in some parts of the country, and this might be applicable. Again, we would have to bring Steve Yearly into the conversation for zoning codes, so it's just starting the conversation. So
I believe at one point zoning was open
to ADUs.
to housing for an aging family member, et cetera, et cetera. And it's never really thought of what happens when the aging ceases and what can be done with that property if the mother-in-law is no longer in need of it. And, it's an interesting question about what can be done, because the idea was that in certain size lots, there could be an addition that could be put in there for living. But the proviso, and I'm not even sure it made it to code, but the proviso was to limit it to the relative of the family that needed to have that, but no thought being given necessarily to what happens to that. Could it be a rented property now in the backyard of someone? Could that be an income producing property? What would it do to the taxes and that sort of thing? So it's a complicated question, but I think, just to reinforce that notion that part of that discussion was what could be done to increase revenue. And it could be a very common thing like paid parking. That would take an action to do such a thing. And there may be a number of other things. For example, what do people pay to get a short-term rental? What sort of an application fee? Is that application fee sufficiently high to bring more revenue into the city and perhaps change something. But these are all things about, is it worth it to charge for certain things? And it's a good discussion, I think, for some committee or some group to just run through the list of what are revenue sources that other cities use? And do we use them at all? Or what, and just try to pique our interest with ways we could increase revenue.
So going back to city properties, one way of perhaps looking into it that would not be that labor intensive, but yet produce the biggest impact of information would be, it should be fairly easy, probably Stephen might be the best person to do it, is to do, take the tax map of the city and just shade in with red, whatever color, the properties that are owned by the city. That should be a fairly easy thing to do.
Yeah, that's what Greg said earlier.
On the map, you have it on the map?
Oh, yeah.
Do
You can make that pretty easily.
Yeah.
GIS and-
Right.
it. That's our GIS, right?
And then just glancing at that map, rather than looking at a list, you will see which properties show have any interest. I'm sorry.
Mayor, just so you know, I already have a list of all the city-owned properties because I have to report it as our fixed assets.
Right.
So I already have that in our KVS system.
So just you put it in a visual map, you look at it and you can right away see which ones have any potential interest or not.
So far, it sounds like the perfect wall is not gonna be of interest.
You can get somebody to buy it.
I believe the housing commission has asked for that. I don't know if they've actually asked for it, but that's part of their job too, to advise us, and I think that's come up at one of the meetings. So not to duplicate or make and triplicate requests for this, I think I don't know, Craig, is that on your radar to provide to the housing commission?
I don't recall them specifically asking for that. I recall from the last.
Yeah, it's just-
We asked them.
Well, they're young, but I think that's one of the things that we're asking, perhaps we'd like to see it, they might like to see it, but we have to make some sense out of what these requests are, so we can. Please.
If I could just add one more thing, if that's okay. Bringing these properties back on the tax roll, I think is a good thing. But I don't want you to misunderstand that it's going to raise more tax revenue. What it's going to do is just redistribute the tax levy. So,
A good point.
okay, so I just want you to understand that.
Mhm.
Good point.
Any other items the committee wants to talk about? A motion to adjourn.
So